Trump tells Schumer to go to hell over Senate nominee deal funding demands. In a dramatic turn of events, President Donald Trump has emphatically told Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to go to hell, following the collapse of negotiations regarding funding for Senate nominees. This intense standoff unfolded after hours of discussions that ultimately failed, leaving lawmakers to return home without a resolution. Both Senate Republicans and Democrats were quick to assign blame for the breakdown of talks. But it was Trump who ultimately derailed the negotiations. In a detailed post on his social media platform, Truth Social, Trump accused Schumer, a Democrat from New York, of demanding over $1 billion to approve a limited number of highly qualified nominees. He described this demand as egregious and unprecedented, asserting that it would be a source of embarrassment for the Republican Party if accepted. Trump characterized the request as a form of political extortion, urging Schumer, who he claimed is under significant pressure from the radical left within his party, to go to hell. Trump further advised Republicans not to accept Schumer's offer, encouraging them to return home and inform their constituents about the Democrats' alleged misdeeds while highlighting the accomplishments of the Republican Party. He concluded his message with a rallying cry to make America great again. Despite the potential for a bipartisan agreement that could have seen as many as 60 of Trump's nominees confirmed, lawmakers only managed to vote on 7 before adjourning until September. Schumer, however, framed Trump's abrupt withdrawal from negotiations as a victory for Senate Democrats, claiming that it was Trump who abandoned the talks while he and Senate Majority Leader John Thune were working towards a compromise. He took his ball and went home, leaving both Democrats and Republicans puzzled about what just transpired, Schumer remarked, standing beside a large printout of Trump's social media post. He added that Trump's all-caps tweet was indicative of his frustration, suggesting that in a moment of anger, Trump had given up and failed to engage in the essential work of negotiation. Before Trump's ultimatum, both parties had been optimistic about reaching an agreement that would satisfy Trump's desire to see his nominees confirmed. Thune noted that numerous offers had been exchanged during the negotiations, with both sides occasionally believing they were close to a deal. Senate Democrats were pushing for the White House to release billions in funding for the National Institute of Health and foreign aid, along with a commitment that no further clawback packages would be introduced. In return, they were willing to approve several of Trump's less controversial nominees. Senator Markwayne Mullin, a Republican from Oklahoma, criticized Schumer for escalating his demands, stating, "We've had 3 different deals since last night, and each time it's been a case of I want more." He emphasized that Republicans were not surprised by Trump's decision to halt negotiations, pointing out that the White House had been deeply involved in the discussions. Mullin expressed his belief that the Democrats were not genuinely interested in reaching a deal, suggesting that they aimed to portray Trump as unrealistic and unable to negotiate effectively, unlike previous presidents. As a result of the failed negotiations, Republicans will not pursue recess appointments, but Mullin indicated that they would consider implementing a rule change to the confirmation process when Congress reconvenes in September. Thune acknowledged that the demands from both sides had evolved significantly over time, but ultimately, they could not reach a consensus. On the flip side, Senate Democrats maintained that their offer had remained consistent, while Republicans kept increasing the number of nominees they sought, including more contentious and partisan selections. Schumer refrained from disclosing the specifics of his demands, but warned that any alterations to Senate rules would be a huge mistake. He urged Trump to collaborate with Senate Democrats moving forward, especially as Congress approaches another critical deadline for government funding in September. If they want to do what's best for the American people, they should stop blindly following Trump, Schumer asserted. This ongoing saga raises important questions about the future of bipartisan cooperation in the Senate. Will the parties find common ground, or are we witnessing a deeper divide? What are your thoughts on the current state of negotiations? Share your opinions in the comments. Trump tells Schumer to go to hell as Senate fails to strike deal on nominees. In a dramatic turn of events, President Donald Trump recently told Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer to go to hell in a social media post, just hours before the Senate adjourned without reaching an agreement on confirming Trump's nominees. This incident highlights the ongoing tensions in Washington, where political negotiations often seem to reach an impasse. Senate Republican leader John Thune, along with Schumer and representatives from the White House, had been engaged in intense discussions aimed at resolving the deadlock, allowing senators to return to their home states. According to sources familiar with the negotiations, Schumer had made a request for the release of federal funds and sought assurances from Trump that he would refrain from introducing another legislative package that could cut federal funding. However, Trump took to social media to label Schumer's demands as egregious and unprecedented, signaling that the talks had ultimately failed. The president had been pushing for the Senate to confirm his nominees, even suggesting that they skip the August recess to do so. His post indicated a clear unwillingness to compromise with the Democrats. In his post, Trump urged Schumer, who was facing significant political pressure from the more radical elements of his party, to go to hell. He advised Schumer not to accept the offer and instead to return home and explain to his constituents the supposed failings of the Democrats, while highlighting the accomplishments of the Republicans. He concluded with a somewhat sarcastic wish for a great recess. During a session on the Senate floor that Saturday night, Thune sought unanimous consent for the chamber to vote on several nominations before breaking for a month. However, Democrats had been deliberately delaying the confirmation of Trump's lower-level nominees, which compelled Thune to keep the Senate in session over the weekend to push through these confirmations. As the minority party, Democrats have the ability to impose procedural hurdles that can prolong the voting process. Schumer had outlined several conditions that needed to be met for a swift confirmation of a group of nominations. These conditions included the unfreezing of federal funds for various programs, such as those supporting the National Institutes of Health and foreign aid initiatives. Additionally, he wanted Trump to commit to not pursuing another funding cut package, known as rescissions, following a $9 billion package that had been approved earlier in the summer. In a news conference that same evening, Schumer expressed that Democrats were genuinely interested in finding a reasonable path to facilitate bipartisan consideration of Trump's nominations. However, he lamented that the president was unwilling to accept the proposed terms. Schumer criticized Trump, stating, "In a fit of rage, Trump threw in the towel, sent Republicans home, and was unable to do the basic work of negotiating. Is this the art of the deal?" He pointed to a poster featuring Trump's social media post as evidence of the breakdown in negotiations. While Schumer refrained from divulging specific details about the discussions with the White House and Thune, he did mention that both parties were getting close on a whole lot of issues, only for Trump to abruptly end the negotiations. As this story continues to develop, CNN has reached out to both the White House and Thune for their comments. This report has been updated to include the latest developments, with contributions from CNN's Samantha Waldenberg. Senate deadlock: Trump versus Schumer over nomination delays. The Senate has departed from Washington for its month-long August break without reaching an agreement to expedite the confirmation of numerous nominees put forth by President Donald Trump. This decision came after several days of intense negotiations that were marked by significant bipartisan tension. In a dramatic turn of events, Trump took to social media to express his frustration, telling Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer to go to hell. With no resolution achieved, Republican senators are contemplating a potential alteration of Senate rules when they reconvene in September, aiming to accelerate the confirmation process. Trump has been vocal in urging senators to act swiftly, as Democrats have been unusually obstructive this year, blocking a greater number of nominees than in the past. This has resulted in a situation where unanimous consent votes are being denied, leading to time-consuming roll call votes for each nominee, which can extend the confirmation process by several days. Senate Majority Leader John Thune expressed his belief that the current Senate rules are in dire need of reform. He stated, "I think they're desperately in need of change," following the breakdown of negotiations with Schumer and Trump. Thune emphasized that the last 6 months have shown that the nomination process is fundamentally flawed, and he anticipates that there will be substantial discussions regarding potential changes. In contrast, Schumer warned that altering the rules would be a huge mistake, particularly since Senate Republicans will require Democratic support for future spending bills and other legislative matters. He remarked, "Donald Trump tried to bully us, go around us, threaten us, call us names, but he got nothing." This latest impasse highlights a growing trend where both Democrats and Republicans have increasingly obstructed each other's nominees for executive and judicial positions over the past 20 years. Additionally, Senate leaders have gradually modified Senate rules to facilitate quicker confirmations, often at the expense of bipartisan cooperation. In 2013, Democrats changed the rules for lower court judicial nominees, eliminating the 60-vote requirement for confirmations after Republicans stalled President Barack Obama's judicial appointments. Similarly, in 2017, Republicans made a similar change for Supreme Court nominees when Democrats attempted to block Trump's nomination of Justice Neil Gorsuch. For weeks, Trump has been pressuring Senate Republicans to forego the August recess and push through a backlog of his nominations, as Democrats have been slowing the process. However, Republicans were hopeful for a compromise with Democrats and came close to an agreement several times in the days leading up to the recess. The negotiations involved discussions about moving a significant number of nominees in exchange for reversing some of the Trump administration's cuts to foreign aid and other issues. During a rare weekend session, the Senate held votes on nominee after nominee while both parties attempted to finalize the details of a potential deal. However, it became evident that an agreement was unlikely when Trump publicly criticized Schumer on social media, urging Republicans to abandon the negotiations and return home. In a post on Truth Social, Trump stated, "Tell Schumer, who is under tremendous political pressure from within his own party, the radical left lunatics, to go to hell. Do not accept the offer. Go home and explain to your constituents what bad people the Democrats are and what a great job the Republicans are doing and have done for our country." Thune later remarked that there were several different times when both sides believed they had reached a deal, but ultimately they were unable to finalize it. This situation marks a significant moment in recent history, as it is the first time the minority party has not permitted at least some swift confirmations. Thune has already extended the Senate session for more days and longer hours this year in an effort to confirm as many of Trump's nominees as possible. However, Democrats were reluctant to concede without the reversal of spending cuts or other incentives, despite their own desire to leave after months of arduous work and contentious partisan battles over legislation. Schumer concluded by stating, "We have never seen nominees as flawed, as compromised, as unqualified as we have right now." This ongoing conflict raises important questions about the future of the Senate's confirmation process and the potential for bipartisan cooperation. What do you think? Is it time for a change in the way nominations are handled, or should the current system remain intact? Share your thoughts in the comments.